I got into self-improvement because my life was going to shit. In January 2022, my startup company in college imploded. I tore my ACL. I was working a soul-sucking finance internship that was unpaid. I was trying to transfer to a D3 school to play quarterback, and I was coping with all of it, smoking, binge eating, playing video games, and just escaping from reality. So when I got to this low point, like many do, I started turning to self help books, thinking they would provide me guidance on how to get out of this rut. And they did. I started practicing multiple self improvement habits, all the gurus, all the books, and all the teachers talked about: meditation, journaling, reading, gratitude journaling, running, eating clean, weightlifting, visualizing my ideal future, etc. So slowly I started to feel better and see progress. But at the time, I didn't realize I was on more than a self improvement journey. I was on a spiritual journey. I just didn't know to call it that yet. At the time, I had no idea what spirituality was. I, like many others, thought anybody that used the word spirituality was like a woo woo burnout hipster. But my perspective slowly started to change on this as life experiences came up. Around this time in February 2022, after I hit that low point, I read a life changing book called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. In this book, there was an exercise called the 12 Areas of Balance, where I ranked various areas of my life, like from health, finances, happiness, etc., on a scale of 1 to 10. Most of the rankings were in like the 4 to 7 range. Some things were going okay, like my fitness was good, but my diet was bad. My finances were pretty shit. I was working as an unpaid corporate finance intern, so I didn't really have any money. But my lowest ranking of them all was spirituality. I ranked it a 2 out of 10. But at the time, I didn't really see this as a problem or any area that needed improvement. I still thought it was like some woo-woo bullshit, honestly. It just wasn't important to me. At the time, I was probably somewhere between agnostic and atheist in terms of my religious or spiritual inclinations. I'd grown up Lutheran, which is a branch of Christianity, and I was confirmed when I was 13, but I fell out of the faith after learning about science and evolution in school, and it just started to seem like nonsense to me. So for years, I completely ignored and dismissed any thought of a higher power as woo-woo garbage. But looking back, that was probably the reason for why I was so low across every area of my life. I lacked a higher calling. I lacked the understanding that there was something more. Now, 2 years later, I'm in a very new place, both in terms of spiritual beliefs and holistic happiness, purpose, well-being, etc. And so coincidentally, now that I'm back home, I picked up that book again this week and started reading it again. I came across that exercise, the 12 Areas of Balance, and I redid it without seeing my previous answers, which were on a sticky note in the book from 2 years ago. And I was significantly higher across the board. Most things were from the 7 to 9 range. And the biggest difference out of them all was I rated spirituality as a 9 versus a 2 years ago. And I truly think that that has been the catalyst above anything else for any type of holistic personal development transformation. Nothing has contributed to my personal growth more than my spiritual growth in hindsight. What I've realized is all personal growth is spiritual growth, even if you aren't aware of it yet, as I wasn't when I started on this personal development self-improvement journey. So how did someone like me, somebody who was like just a jock, a very science-based evolutionary psychology guy, stumble into the spiritual rabbit hole? And the reason is because of these self-improvement YouTubers and creators I started following. So I want to make a statement that might sound crazy, but I think I can convince you that it's true. Dan Coe, Hamza, and Justin Scott, for example, plus countless others, are actually spiritual teachers. They teach through the frame of self-improvement, but what they're actually teaching is self-actualization. Self-improvement is the slippery slope into spirituality. Spirituality is the slippery slope into self-actualization. But how are they spiritual teachers? Because what they do as self-improvement YouTubers or creators is they help their followers solve their problems. By helping their followers solve their problems, they are actually raising their followers and their viewers' levels of consciousness. An Einstein quote actually encapsulates this pretty well. He says, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." So to solve problems, you have to raise consciousness. There's no other way. So these self-improvement YouTubers who you follow, as they solve your problems, are actually raising your consciousness. So what are some of these problems that they help me solve? Hamza, for example, was a huge influence on me. He helped me solve countless problems in my life, with the binge eating, the smoking weed, the going out partying, and just feeling like shit the next day, understanding a deeper purpose. He actually inspired me to move back home with my parents to focus, as he did the same thing, even though he's way ahead of me in the journey. Justin Scott also helped me solve other problems when I joined his academy. So he helped me sign my first coaching clients. He helped me understand that you can do business through the lens of service. He helped me overcome limiting beliefs about my business capabilities. He helped me learn how to sell without being scammy or manipulative. And he helped me reframe how certain periods of life unfold in a harmony. And sometimes, for some instruments to shine, whether it's your health or your business or relationships, others have to fall silent for the time being. And then Dan Coe helped me solve countless more problems than I can list. But first of all, it was escaping the 9-to-5 journey that I was heading down, becoming my own niche, as we'll get into in later episodes, not working more than 4 hours a day and building a business that way, writing online and building a readership, and understanding one-person business marketing and sales. And he introduced me to all of this self-actualization and spiritual stuff from the lens of business, which I found to be fascinating. So these thought leaders, and that's what they are thought leaders, they help me raise my consciousness. These influencers who I originally started following for self-improvement advice led me down the slippery slope of self-help, which led to self-improvement, which led to spirituality, which is now leading to self-transcendence. Now I'm helping others. And self-transcendence, as Viktor Frankl says, is the only way to achieve self-actualization. I'm not at those final stages yet. I'm on the path, but I'm not quite there. And I truly believe that this path is accessible to anyone who's interested in personal development or self-improvement. It's inevitable if you're in it for long enough. So I defined 5 stages of self-improvement that everybody goes down. So step 1, I truly believe self-hatred or self-pity or being in a low spot is what leads to self-improvement. So I truly believe the desire to improve yourself has to stem from a deep dissatisfaction from who you are. When you hit a low, like I did during college, you have 2 choices. You can either claw yourself out of that hole, or you can wallow in your self-pity forever and wonder what life could have been like had you actually taken action. So because humans survive on a conceptual level, we're made to evolve and solve problems. That instinct leads us to option 1, clawing yourself out of that hole, which leads us to self-improvement. So at this point, when you get into self-improvement, you start reading books, you start meditating, you start journaling, you start taking cold showers, you start hitting the gym, etc. And when this becomes your new baseline, when you start to change your self-image and your self-identity, it's natural in your human nature, psychologically, to seek more. And the second step is where I believe entrepreneurship comes in. So the second step, step 2, is self-improvement is a slippery slope into entrepreneurship. Once you begin wanting more out of yourself and more out of life, at least for me, working a 9-to-5 job and wasting away your potential sounded like a death sentence. And it's not to say that a 9-to-5 job is bad. I believe it's a good stepping stone into entrepreneurship. But as you begin to read these self-help books and follow self-improvement YouTubers and find people like Naval and find people like Hamza who are talking about entrepreneurship and find Dan Coe who's talking about one-person business, you begin to gain the awareness that there is another path, that you can build your own business and create a life of abundance if you take action. So at this point, you're probably curious enough to be interested in doing it yourself, but you don't really know where to begin. So you try a bunch of different business models. You try web design. You try e-commerce, you try copywriting, you try drop shipping, you try making Instagram theme pages. I did all these things not knowing where to start, but I knew that learning a skill would provide me with the baseline competence to begin to eventually do my own thing. The problem is, and I experienced this, is people often get burnt out of those initial stages of entrepreneurship because their business or what they're learning isn't aligned with their interests. When I was trying to learn copywriting just for the sake of copywriting, like I felt no intrinsic desire to keep learning that. When I was drop shipping, it felt kind of meaningless. And so this is where I think the creator economy comes in and solves this problem. So in the modern day, I truly believe entrepreneurship is a slippery slope into the creator economy. The creator economy is the new digital economy. Personal brands are becoming more of a non-negotiable by the day. When I was doing an entrepreneurship program through college in San Francisco, I was in the presence of a lot of startup founders, CEOs, venture capitalists, and I asked them about personal branding and the power of that. And they all were saying the same thing. Like they wanted to have a personal brand. They saw the value in it. They knew that they needed one to compete in the new digital economy, but most of them didn't have the time. That's where ghostwriting comes in, which is what I got into. But that's a bit of a side tangent. The point is, the entrepreneurs who have those personal brands on social media, they gain access to leverage, accountability, and connection with fans who become customers that those who stay anonymous cannot access. When you have a personal brand, you have a live digital resume that lives with you for life. For me, for growing a following on Twitter of like 20,000 followers in a year, I know that that brand will provide me with any job I would need for the rest of my life. I don't need a formal resume. I don't even need a college degree. My personal brand and the authority I've built and the connections I've built through the creator economy ensure that I will have work and value no matter what for the rest of my life. So once you build a personal brand, you build distribution, which will eventually become your customers by growing a readership. With a readership, eventually you can sell whatever you want. Like if you look at the bigger creators, you can't tell me that if like a Dan Coe or a Dickie Bush sold a fitness course, which they don't, but they could, they wouldn't make over $100,000 from launching that. By building a personal brand and crafting this character and this image, which is just you attract people who resonate with your story, who want to be like you, and will buy whatever you put out as long as you stay in the game for long enough. So when you enter this new economy as a new entrepreneur, you usually have no idea how you're going to get to that stage. You have no idea what your role will be, what you'll sell, or how you'll make any money. This is completely normal. I was the same way. You might start with freelancing. You might start by learning one skill and cold DMing people and making money that way. I started with ghostwriting. But what I've transitioned into and what I'm transitioning into in my personal preference is turning yourself into the business by solving your own problems and teaching those behind you. So what does that look like for me right now? I've solved my own problems of leaving college, escaping the 9-to-5, building a audience on Twitter of 20,000 followers, creating a digital resume that will stick with me for the rest of my life, creating systems, becoming organized, holistically improving my life, and I can teach those lessons to people behind me that also want to follow in that path. So this leads us right into step 4. Your creator business is your vehicle for self-actualization. This is where the spirituality is going to come full circle. As you solve your own problems, as Einstein said again, by raising your consciousness, you begin the process of self-actualization. Then you accelerate your self-actualization by transcending yourself, by helping others solve their problems in this new economy. For example, I've worked with people who at the start, they didn't have a Twitter account. They didn't know how to monetize. And a couple months into the program, they've grown 1,000 followers. They've signed their first ghostwriting gigs. They've made their first online dollar. And because I was just a step or two ahead of them, I was able to teach the lessons that I learned and pass them down to them so that they could begin to self-actualize themselves. So here's the thing about the creator economy. You get paid to self-actualize. In the creator economy, you're rewarded by helping others raise their own consciousness, and then they raise more people's consciousness by passing down their own lessons to the people behind them. So now I want you to imagine a future where everybody is in this creator economy. And this leads us to step 5 of the self-improvement journey. And this is much more on a grand societal human life scale, you could say. The creator economy is humanity's vehicle for collective self-actualization. There's a quote from Naval that encapsulates this point. He says, "The internet enables 8 billion monopolies." Now, how is that possible? Imagine a future where everybody is in the creator economy. They all have their own interests. They've all solved their own problems. They're all helping people behind them solve their own problems. Every human being connected through this net of collective consciousness, which are social media and the internet, are solving their own problems and helping the people behind them solve them too. Eventually, we reach a point where everyone plays their unique role, has their unique domain of expertise, and helps everyone else solve the same problems they previously overcame. Once we collectively solve the base level problems like hunger, shelter, food, etc., we will collectively ascend up Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a society. The thing about humanity right now is we're still evolving, but we're not evolving on a physical level anymore. We're evolving on a conceptual level. We're evolving on the level of consciousness. And this is why I believe the creator economy will be humanity's vehicle for collective self-actualization. The creator economy will be how we reach the next stage of human evolution. And I want to cap that off with one more Naval quote where he says, "Eventually, everybody will be in the creator economy." Now, who knows how quickly this will be? Maybe it'll be 25 years. Maybe it'll be 50 years, maybe it'll be 100, maybe 1,000, but I think it's inevitable that at some point when everybody has access to this digital economy, it'll become as non-negotiable as having a resume in that future. There won't be an option to not have it. It'll become somewhat of a gig economy. So the question is, how do you succeed in this new digital economy? It's simple. You solve your own problems. You solve your own problems by ordering your consciousness, raising your consciousness, operating from a new plane, and solving those problems. Then you teach others how to solve those same problems. Now, how do you help others solve their same problems? By distilling your lessons, and as these self-improvement YouTubers did to me, by actually ordering and raising your followers or your fans or your viewers' consciousnesses. Maybe I'm doing that through this podcast. I don't know. But here's the point. Consciousness is the metagame. Consciousness is the ultimate peak performance hack. When you're operating from this higher plane, everything flows. You're tapped into the infinite. Energy is infinite. You're connected to that infinite. Creation will happen on autopilot. Everything you do will stem from consciousness. But consciousness is not a fixed trait. You aren't just born with a certain level and you're stuck there. You can rise up the levels of consciousness through deliberate action and self-education and listening to podcasts like this, maybe. There are multiple levels to consciousness. There's different models you can look into. I highly recommend looking into ego development psychology. There's a great video by a guy named actualize.org on 9 stages of ego development that will completely open your eyes to these different levels of consciousness and show you the light of how to get there. There's also spiral dynamics, and there's also the Hawkins scale of consciousness. So you can begin to understand those different levels by researching and doing your own research. But as you overcome your own problems and obstacles, you're raising your consciousness. If you raise your consciousness, everything else will fall into place. But you might be asking, okay, like this is some woo-woo shit. Like how does consciousness impact my growth as an entrepreneur or creator? This is how. Succeeding in the creator economy is an inner game. It's a battle between your higher and lower self every day. It's all on you if you're going to show up, self-educate, do the work, network, etc. Pull all the levers you need to. All gains you'll see in this creator economy will come from ordering your consciousness on a goal. All losses you will see will come from the entropy of consciousness, the disorder of consciousness. So how do you do this? Order your consciousness towards a goal, solve your own problems, block out the distractions, learn to focus, work to stay in that higher state of awareness, watch yourself constantly. Figure out how to raise your consciousness by solving your own problems, accomplishing goals, and then teach those behind you the lessons you learned. If you can do this at scale with accountability, authenticity, and leverage, you will be massively rewarded, as will all the people who listen to your stuff or read your stuff. And the final point I want to make is a great quote from one of my friends. I'm sure it's not from him, but he's referenced it. Lee, the Zentrepreneur on Twitter. He says, all gains in life come from ordered consciousness. All losses come from disordered consciousness. So with that, I know this was a little bit esoteric. It was a little bit out there, but I'm really beginning to see that all the growth you're going to see as a creator and entrepreneur, it all stems from ordering and raising your consciousness. So with that, that was all. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, give it a 5-star rating on Spotify if you're listening. If you're listening on YouTube, give it a like, subscribe on whatever platform. And yep, that's all. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.